sit and wonder why, babe. If you don't know by now, ain't no use to sit and wonder why, babe. It'll never do somehow. When your rooster crows at the break of dawn, look out your window and I'll be gone. You're the reason I'm a-traveling on. But don't think twice, it's alright. Hey friends, how's it going? David Potts here with Song Notes, and in today's lesson, I'm going to show you how to play Don't Think Twice, It's Alright, the Bob Dylan classic. So in this lesson, though, I'm going to focus just on the strumming, right? So even if you want to learn the fingerstyle version, which I have a separate lesson for, this is going to be a great foundation because I'm going to teach you the chords, the chord progressions, and just talk about some of the walking bass lines, all of which you will need if you want to do the fingerstyle version. So hopefully this will be quite helpful for you. As always, I got the PDF printout for this song, whether you want to strum a campfire version, a more advanced strum version, or eventually move on to the fingerstyle version. This one PDF will be exactly what you need. You can get that over at my website, playsongnotes.com. And the last thing I'll say is I'm going to break this lesson into two parts. First half is going to be very much more beginner focused, beginner friendly. I'm not going to fancy up any of the chords. I'm going to use a really simple strumming pattern. It'll be super approachable, kind of give you a nice campfire sort of version of this song, right? Nice simple strum. In the second half of the lesson, I'm going to dial up the strumming pattern a little bit. I'm going to show you some walking bass lines, a bit more complicated stuff if that's your jam too. So if you're comfortable with your chords and everything, you can jump on ahead to the second half, but otherwise, let's start at the beginning and show you the foundations of this song. Don't think twice, it's all right. So first up, I'm gonna have a capo on the 4th fret. This will let us play along with Bob Dylan's version, okay? So this song is in the key of C. If our capo is on the 4th fret, we're gonna use chord families in the key of C. The basic chords we're gonna need are quite simply a C chord, a G chord, an A minor chord, and an F chord. Now I'm going to talk about these really quickly, okay? C chord is pretty standard and straightforward. The A minor is quite similar to the C, right? The only difference is your ring finger. It's going to be either on the 5th string for the C or 3rd string for the A minor. So C and A minor are very much a similar chord. Now the G, you can sort of position your hand in that however you want. I like to do my ring finger on the 6th string, pinky on the 1st string, okay? If you want, you can put your middle finger down on the 5th fret here, 5th string at the 2nd fret it is. So 3rd, 2nd, open, 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 3rd, right? You also can just leave your middle finger up and mute the 5th string. And by that, I just mean your ring finger is gently touching it. So if you were to strum all 6 strings, it would still sound like a G. Even otherwise, beyond that, you could use your middle finger down here on the 6th string. I kind of recommend, though, for this one, trying to do it like this, with your ring and middle down here. And the reason why is it converts so nicely from C to G, okay? That transition's a lot trickier if you do your middle finger on the 6th string for the G. So again, this is the G fingering I recommend, whether or not you mute the 5th string or not. Okay, and then we will need the A minor I already showed you, and now the F chord. So the 6th string version of the F is like this: 1st, 3rd, 3rd, 2nd, 1st, 1st. This is a tricky chord, right? Now there's some easier options here, one of which is just to play the middle 4 strings, for example. 3rd, 3rd, 2nd, 1st. And if you do this, it helps if you can sort of just bump your thumb and maybe your index finger into the thickest and thinnest strings. That way, you can sort of play all 6 strings and it still sounds good. If you leave the first and last string open, they're gonna ring out in that chord. That's not good. You kind of want to muffle them, right? Or you could just do, this is probably the easiest possible version, thinnest 4 strings only, 3rd, 2nd, 1st, open. This is an F major 7, but it'll more or less work for this song. So this is the easiest possible version of an F that I would recommend, right? Okay. That's the sort of 2nd, 3rd, and 4th string, or you could do the middle 4 strings if you want. And if you're feeling a bit more ambitious, you can use your thumb, wrap it around there. I have a separate lesson all about this, how to wrap your thumb around on the F and get that 1st fret of the low E string. This is a great little technique to do if you can manage it, but don't worry about it for now if it's giving you any kind of trouble. The only other two chords we'll need are pretty standard chords. They're going to be a C7 chord, which is just a C, and we're going to put our pinky down on the 3rd fret of the 3rd string. So practice going to a C, and then just putting your pinky down right on the 3rd string. That's going to be your C7 chord. And then finally there's a D7, which is just open, 2nd, 1st, 2nd. On the thinnest 4 strings, okay? So those are the chords we're going to need for the simplest possible version of this song. Now the song itself is a bunch of verses and choruses that repeat, right? And you have an intro as well, but they're all kind of using the same general progression here. And I want to talk about the progression, because if we understand the progression, then the verses will come and go, but basically we just always use this one progression for the verse and the chorus, and we'll be in good shape, okay? So the first one we'll look at is the verse here. So the verse is going to have basically 4 counts per each measure, right? So 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4. 2, 3, 4. And in my chart here, the way it works is whenever you see those pipes, that means it's beginning or an end of a measure, right? And the chord name plus the dots represents one beat, right? So for example, this first line is going to be one measure of C, right? So 1, 2, 3, 4, G, 2, 3, 4, A minor, 2, 3, 4, A minor, 2, 3, 4. And we go to F for 2 measures, right? That's generally how we're going to read this. It goes from top to bottom, and then each line is from left to right, okay? Now, as far as the strumming pattern I recommend, for a most beginner-friendly possible version, I recommend just doing a down strum on the 1 and the 3 count, right? So 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4. I recommend getting comfortable with this before you bring in chords, right? And you could even technically kind of sing the song, right? Well, it ain't no use to sit and wonder why, babe, right? 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2. If and you don't know by now. So it's very, very straightforward approach there, only on the 1 and the 3 count. So what I'm going to do is go through this verse progression, part 1 and part 2, and I'm going to strum on the 1 and the 3 count, and we'll sort of get a feel for the song, right? So the first part of the verse is going to be 1 measure of C, 1 measure of G, 2 measures of A minor, okay? Then we're going to do 2 measures of F, and then 2 measures, 1 measure of C, and then 1 measure of G. Okay, so that would sound like this. So C 2 3 4, G 2 3 4, A minor 2 3 4, 1 2 3 4, F 2 3 4, F 2 3 4, C 2 3 4, G 2 3 4. And the second part of the verse uses the exact same progression, except the second line is different. Instead of going to the F, we're going to go to the D7 for 2 measures. Then we're going to go to the G for 2 measures. Okay, so it ain't no use to sit and wonder why, babe. It'll let you down or something somehow. I totally forgot the words there, right? But you get the idea, right? So that's going to be how we would play the verse, right? And I'll do a full playthrough of the first verse in a minute here. Let's look at the chorus though really quick. The chorus is going to be 2 measures of C, followed by 2 measures of C7, right? So when your rooster crows at the C7 of dawn, 1 2 3 4 F 2 3 4 F 2 3 4 D7 I'm gone D7 2 3 4 C 2 3 4 G 2 3 4 A minor 2 3 4 F 2 3 4 C don't think twice to G and it's all right 2 3 4 C 2 3 4. Okay, so that's going to be the verse and the chorus progression there. Okay, simplest possible version. Now let me do a playthrough of the entire first verse and first chorus using that, and then you'll get a good feel for things. And then later on in the lesson, I'll move into some of the more advanced stuff here, okay? Well, it ain't no use to sit and wonder why, babe. If and you don't know by now. And it ain't no use to sit and wonder why, babe. it'll never do somehow. Chorus. Rooster crows at the break of dawn. Look out your window and I'll be gone. You're the reason I'm a traveling on. But don't think twice, it's alright. Okay, so after that, you would move into the harmonica break, or he's just playing basically the first part of the verse chords again, right? So nothing new there, okay? Okay, so that's gonna cover it for the absolute basic foundation of the song. So you could stop here, take what I've given you, get the printout at my website, you know the basic chords, and basically use what I've taught you, and you could go play the song, use a simple strumming pattern, and you're good to go. And the thing I'll say, if you want to stay in this beginner world, is when you look at the chord sheet on my website, whenever you see something like G7 or D7 over F sharp, just sort of revert that back to the simpler version of the chord, right? So instead of a G7, just play a G, right? Instead of a D7 over F sharp, just play a D7, right? It's, in general, with music, if you do that, you're gonna be in okay shape. All these little extra nuances, most of the time, aren't gonna make a world of difference. But there are some, more advanced little techniques happening with some of the chords, and that's what I'm gonna teach you next as we move on to the advanced section of the song. Okay, so you have the beginning basics under control and you want to move on to something more advanced. Here's how I would recommend doing it. So before I taught you these chords, right? The C, the G, the A minor. I showed you a few versions of F, right? However you want to do it. And the C7 and a D7, okay? So those are the chords I taught you before. Now, let's look at some of the other ones here that are a bit more advanced, okay? So one of these is going to be an A minor over G. And what that is, it's our basic A minor chord, but we want to have this as our bass note. 3rd fret of the low E string. That's a G note, so it's going to be an A minor chord over a G bass note, okay? 2 ways to play that. Generally, you'll find folks doing it just by taking the regular A minor and putting your pinky down here. Okay? That's one way to do it. I find this trickier because you're having to reach more. Your pinky is generally touching some of the other strings, maybe. What I like to do, I find this to be much, much, much easier, is basically take your A minor, just pull off your ring finger, and put it down here on the 3rd fret of the low E string. Okay, so this kind of turns it into an A minor 7 over G or a C over G, but don't really worry about that because, again, I think the convenience you gain here is so, so helpful. So you want to practice basically going from an A minor, okay, to the A minor over G. And later on, we're going to go from that to an F, right? We have this bass note walk down. Right? So that's basically the way it's going to be used. Now, the other chord we're going to need, which is a bit tricky, is this D7 over an F sharp. The F sharp is here on the 6th string, 2nd fret. 2 ways to play it if you want to worry about it at all. You could just stay with the D7, it's going to be fine, right? But if you want the extra credit, you want to add this bass note. 2 ways to do it. One is you do a regular D7 and you sort of sneak your thumb in there. This is a tricky technique, right? Doesn't come necessarily quick, I'm guessing, for a lot of people. The way I like to do this chord, though, is like this. I do 2nd, open, open, 2nd, 1st, and I don't play the thinnest string. I find this one a lot easier to manage because your index finger is already on this note for a lot of chords. It's there for the C, it's there for the F, it's there for the A minor, it's there for the F, and then it makes going to the D7 over F sharp a lot easier. So that's how I recommend playing this chord, okay? And then the final one is going to be a G7, right? So take your regular G. The only difference with a G7 is we want to have on the thinnest string, the thinnest string is 1st fret instead of 3rd fret, okay? The very distinctive riff in this song. Whoop. Going to involve basically hammering that 1st fret down. So this G7 is one you want to have in your bag of tricks. Another way to do the G7, though, is basically do thickest 5 strings and just do third, second, third, open, open. Okay? That's going to come back later because I'm going to show you some other cool stuff you can do here. But let's look at the chord progression here, and let's look at the strumming pattern that we're going to use for this more advanced version. So the chord progression looks like this. It's a bit more Frankenstein-y, right? Because some of these chord names are a bit longer, so the timing is all messed up. But the main idea here is 4 beats per measure, okay? The name of the chord counts as 1 beat, and then each dot counts as a 2nd beat, right? Now you do have these walk downs that happen that I call out, and they happen on a beat. So the strumming pattern I'm going to use is this. Down, down, up, down, up, down, down, up, down, up, down, down, up, down, up, down, down, up, down, up. And the difference between that and a normal strumming pattern I want to call out is on the first count, right? The 1, 2, and 4, and 1, 2, and 4, and on the 1 count, I recommend plucking just the bass note. So it's bass down, up, bass down, up, bass down, up, bass down, up, bass down. When I say bass down, that's really a down strum, but you're only plucking the bass note. So I'm saying bass instead, right? So if we did a G to a, if we did a C to a G to an A minor, this is what it would sound like, right? Again, C to G to A minor. So every measure is going to start with the bass note of that chord being played, right? And that's actually going to be what I'm going to show you now, which is some of these walking bass lines, okay? So there's a couple times in this song where we have chord transitions where the bass lines are going to sort of change intentionally between things. And here's what I mean by that, right? So first up, we're going to have this one going from an A minor to an A minor over G to an F, right? The key here, this happens in the first measure, right? So the first line, so ain't no use to sit and wonder why, babe. You don't know by now. But I want to talk about this walk down where you're going from an A minor to an A minor over G to an F. And the key here is to have that bass note have sort of clean sounds that nicely walk down. Another little transition we're going to have is at the very end of the verse, we're going to be on a G. Okay, the context is D7. It'll never do somehow when your rooster is a crowing. So what's happening there is we're on a regular G, and then you do G6, which I'm calling a G6, 2nd fret of the 4th string, and then 3rd fret of the 4th string. Okay? This is a good little exercise to practice for this one. We're going from a G6 to G7, okay? In context, again, it's, it ain't no use to sit and wonder why, babe. It'll never do somehow. Okay, when I do that part, I do 1 strum on the low E string, G6 bass note, G7 bass note. Whoops. So that's what you do for that little walk down there. And what are the other ones? There's one other one here, which is the chorus, right? So you're the reason I'm a-traveling on, right? You hear that? The C to the B to the A to the G to the F. Couple options here. For that 2nd chord, you could do a G over B. You're the reason, right? Just middle 4 strings. You want this bass note right here. 2nd fret of the 5th string. What you could do though is you could do an E chord. So you're the reason I'm a-traveling on. Now I'll say if you do the E chord, you also could do the E chord, but have the 5th string be your bass note. So then you're still gonna get the descending sound, right? You're the reason I'm a-traveling on. But don't think twice. It's all right, okay? So those are some bass note stuff that I just want to call out there, and you can get those all on my tab here. But with that said, let me do a playthrough now of just the verse and the chorus using this new strumming pattern with all these walk downs and everything I just showed you. All right, here we go. So, well, it ain't no use to sit and wonder why, babe. If then you don't know by now. Ain't no use to sit and wonder why, babe. It'll never do somehow. When your rooster crows at the break of dawn, look out your window and I'll be gone. You're the reason I'm a traveling on. But don't think twice, it's alright. And there you go. That's what you have for that version of the song. So again, whether you want to do a simple strum, 1 and 3 count, right? Or you want to do the bass down, up, bass down, up, bass down. Or if you just want to use your fingers and, well, it ain't no use to sit and wonder why, babe. If you don't know by now, ain't no use to sit and wonder why, babe. It'll never do somehow. When your rooster crows at the break of dawn, look out your window and I'll be gone. You're the reason I'm traveling on. Hey, but don't think twice, it's alright. All right, so there you have it. Don't think twice, it's all right. So I hope in this lesson you came away with an understanding of the chords, both the beginner, totally straightforward versions, as well as some of the more advanced versions, right? You have the strumming patterns, whether you want something simple or something a bit more advanced, and you understand the chord progressions, right? Then you have these walking bass lines, right? And no matter which of the which ways you want to arrange everything I just showed you, that's up to you, but that's totally okay. And again, check out my other lesson if you want to learn the fingerstyle version of this song, which matches what Bob Dylan plays. That's a lot trickier to learn, but I find that a good prerequisite to learning that is understanding all these basics, because then you sort of have these under your belt, and then you can add the right hand finger picking techniques, and you'll be on your way. So I'm going to leave you here. Check out my website, playsongnotes.com, to get the PDF for this and all my other lessons. And thanks for watching. I'll see you around. Take care. Bye-bye.